People only treat you how you allow them to, and most of us allow far too much. We smile when we should speak. We laugh when we want to leave. We stay silent when everything in us wants to scream. I want you to think back to a moment, not just any moment, but that moment. The one that left you sitting in your car afterward, fists clenched, running the conversation over and over in your head. The moment someone disrespected you, blatantly, and you said nothing. Maybe it was your boss, who spoke to you like you were disposable, or a so-called friend, who cracked that joke at your expense, and everyone laughed. Or maybe it was family. They questioned your choices, mocked your progress, acted like your boundaries were just inconveniences for them to ignore. And what did you do? You took it. You swallowed it. You brushed it off like it didn't bother you. But it did. It burned. And when you got home that night, you felt it. Not just the anger, but the shame. The shame of knowing you let it slide. Again. Let's be honest with each other. You don't want revenge. You're not trying to fight. You're just tired. Tired of being disrespected. Tired of pretending it doesn't matter. Tired of not knowing what to say or how to say it without looking weak or out of control. You want strength. Calm strength. You want to walk into a room and know, not hope, but know, that people can sense your boundaries without you even having to explain them. You want to live in a way that demands respect, not chases it. And here's the truth most people won't tell you. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to clap back. You don't need to win every argument. You just need to know who you are and what you will never again accept. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor, Stoic philosopher, once said, "How much time he gains who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does or thinks." You don't need to monitor every slight, every insult, every whisper. You just need to decide what is beneath you, what is no longer up for debate. Because you can't stop people from being disrespectful, but you can stop giving them access to you. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 simple but powerful Stoic tactics. You won't need to yell, you won't need to fight, you won't even need to raise your voice. But after this, people won't look at you the same, because you won't be carrying yourself the same. You'll learn how to command respect through silence, how to set boundaries so clearly people think twice before crossing them, how to detach from the opinions of those who only try to break you down, how to respond calmly when someone tries to get under your skin, and how to live in a way that speaks louder than anything you could ever say. This isn't about ego. This is about dignity. This is for the version of you that's been buried under years of people-pleasing, under fake smiles and forced tolerance, under apologies you never should have had to make. This is for the part of you that's done being quiet for the wrong reasons and ready to be quiet for the right ones. Because silence isn't weakness, it's power when it comes from someone who knows their worth. So before we begin, take a breath. Let go of the last time they talked down to you. Let go of that friend who only calls to take. Let go of trying to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. This is your turning point. From now on, you don't chase respect, you embody it. Before we dive deeper, I want you to pause for a second and ask yourself this. When did you start accepting less than you deserve? Was it in school when speaking up made you the problem? Was it at home where silence kept the peace? Or was it in that last relationship where love came with conditions and your voice was always too loud, too emotional, too much? You didn't choose to be disrespected, but somewhere along the way, you got used to it. You got good at shrinking, at nodding, at walking away with things unsaid, just to keep the room comfortable. But comfort is not the goal anymore. Respect is. And if that hits you where it needs to, if you're tired of being treated like a backup plan, a doormat, a maybe later, then this isn't just another video for you. It's a quiet revolution. Subscribe if you're tired of being treated like an option. Stick around. The next 5 moves are going to change how the world sees you, because they'll change how you see you. Now, let's talk about silence, not the kind that hides you, the kind that shields you. Trick number 1. Silence is powerful. Silence. Most people think it means defeat. They think if you don't clap back, if you don't defend yourself, you're weak, or scared, or don't know what to say. But in reality, silence is control, the purest kind. It's not the silence of surrender, it's the silence of someone who knows exactly who they are and no longer needs to prove it. Let me tell you a story. A man was in a meeting, the kind where people talk over each other just to sound important. He sat there, quiet, listening, not because he had nothing to say, but because he knew none of them were really listening anyway. Then someone tried to take a jab at him. You always have that blank stare, like you're just here for the paycheck. Laughter. All eyes turned to him, waiting, hoping he'd get flustered, waiting for his comeback. He didn't move. He just looked at the speaker, calm, steady, then turned back to his notes and said nothing. The laughter stopped. The silence made them uncomfortable, not him. Because what he showed in that moment wasn't submission, it was mastery. When you don't react, you make people sit in the weight of their own words. And that silence, it's a mirror. It reflects them, their insecurity, their need to provoke, their lack of control. And here's where Stoicism steps in. The Stoics taught that emotional detachment is not weakness, it's armor. Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. Your reaction is your responsibility. We live in a world where everyone wants the last word, but the person who can sit in silence, calm, composed, still, that person carries an authority no volume can match. Because silence makes people listen harder. It unnerves them. It forces them to wonder what you're thinking, why you didn't respond, if you saw through them. That's psychological control. And science backs this up. There's something called mirror neurons in the brain. These neurons fire when we observe someone else's behavior. It's why yawns are contagious, why emotions ripple through rooms. So when you're calm, centered, silent, the people around you start to mirror that energy, whether they want to or not. They slow down, they pull back, they rethink. Silence rewires the room. But here's the hard part. Most of us were raised to believe that silence equals powerlessness, that if you don't defend yourself, you'll get walked on, that if you don't speak up, people will keep disrespecting you. But what you weren't told is that most disrespect dies in silence, not fake silence. Not the kind where you're fuming on the inside, dying to say something, but true silence, stillness. Not because you can't speak, but because you choose not to. Here's what most people don't know. You don't always need to speak to assert yourself. You don't need to defend every insult. You don't need to explain your value. Sometimes, the strongest move is to pause. Let their words float in the air, unsupported. Let them feel the emptiness of their own energy. But how do you know when silence is the right move? Here's a rule I've learned. If their words come from insecurity, be still. If they're looking for control, give them none. If they're trying to draw you into chaos, stay quiet. But if your silence would cause harm to someone else or to your own boundaries, then speak, briefly, clearly, and with intention, because silence isn't just about saying nothing. It's about choosing what deserves your voice. Let's apply this. A rude boss, you answer only what's necessary, calm, neutral, no emotion to feed on. A passive-aggressive family member, You respond with silence and a boundary that doesn't need to be explained. A stranger trying to provoke you, you stare, you blink, you walk away, you owe them nothing. And the beautiful part, silence doesn't need to be rehearsed. It can't be misquoted. It doesn't make you look petty. It just is. A wall, a boundary, a message that says, you don't control me. So here's your first move, your first Stoic weapon. Stop giving people your reactions. Let them talk. Let them judge. Let them poke, prod, provoke. Let them wonder why you didn't respond. Because that wondering, that silence, it's louder than anything you could have said. The best revenge, Marcus Aurelius wrote, is not to be like your enemy. You don't fight chaos with more chaos. You don't meet disrespect on its level. You rise above it, quietly, deliberately, with power. And the next time someone tries to pull you into their storm, you'll remember this. You are not obligated to answer every invitation to conflict. Sometimes silence is the most articulate thing you can say. Let's move to the second move, because once you master silence, you'll need to know where to draw the line, and that's where boundaries come in. Trick number 2, set unbreakable boundaries. You've learned silence. Now, you need walls, because silence without boundaries is just passive tolerance dressed up as self-control. Here's the truth. If you don't set the standard for how people treat you, they'll set it for you. And that standard, it'll keep dropping. Every time you stay quiet when you should have drawn the line. Every time you let that one time slide. Every time you trade your peace for their comfort. There's a moment I remember like it just happened. The first time I said no. Truly said it. No apology. No softening. No explanation. Just no. And the silence after that, it was louder than any argument I'd ever been in. People pulled away. Some got angry. Others just disappeared. But when the dust settled, I was still standing, and for the first time I realized something. I didn't lose them. I found myself. You have to understand, boundaries don't push people away. They reveal who was never really with you to begin with. There are 2 kinds of boundaries. 1. Physical boundaries. How close someone can stand. What kind of touch you accept. How you allow your body and space to be accessed. 2. Emotional boundaries. How someone speaks to you. What topics are off limits. What behaviors will not be entertained, no matter who it is. Both are essential, and both, when set clearly, tell the world, this is the price of admission to my life. Now let's go deeper. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology caught up. Epictetus wrote, if someone does wrong, it's their problem. If you tolerate it, it's yours. What you tolerate, you're teaching. Every ignored insult, every shrugged-off manipulation, every second chance you gave just to keep the peace, you weren't being kind, you were training them. Because people test what they can get away with. It's not always malicious, sometimes it's subconscious. But the pattern is real. Give an inch, they'll take your spine unless you draw the line. So how do you do it? How do you set boundaries that don't just sound strong, but stay strong? Here are your tools. Tool 1, the 3-strike rule. You don't need to cut everyone off after one misstep, but you don't need to keep bleeding for repeat offenders either. Strike 1, let them know. Calm, direct. I don't allow that. Strike 2, reinforce it. Make it known this isn't negotiable. Strike 3, consequences, distance, silence, access removed. No theatrics, no debates, just a quiet door. Closing. Tool 2, the non-negotiables checklist. You need to define before the moment what you will never allow again, being interrupted or talked over. Non-negotiable, mocking your values, your boundaries, your healing. Non-negotiable, Guilt tripping you for saying no? Non-negotiable. This isn't a wish list, it's your self-respect contract, and once you write it, live by it. Tool 3. The body language of boundaries. Before you say a word, your body speaks. Posture, upright, not puffed up, not slouched, solid, still. Eye contact, steady, not aggressive. Calm, not soft. Voice, low, clear. No filler words, no sorry but. When your body is congruent with your words, people listen. Because you're not asking to be respected, you're expecting it, and expectations are felt. Let me be clear, setting boundaries won't make everyone like you. Some will get offended, some will say you've changed, some will leave. Good, let them, because anyone who's offended by your boundaries was benefiting from your lack of them. You weren't born to be a people pleaser, you were taught to be one. And what's taught can be unlearned. You don't have to raise your voice, you don't have to explain over and over, you just have to decide, I'm no longer available for this. And once you decide that, you'll feel it, a shift, like armor clicking into place, like finally standing on your own side. So here's the second Stoic move. Set unbreakable boundaries, not walls that shut love out, but gates that decide who enters, not out of fear, but out of self-respect. Now, let's move to the next truth. Because once you've mastered silence, once your boundaries are in place, you'll realize something hard. You still care what they think, and that's the next thing we have to break. Approval addiction. You've made it this far, and if you're still here, something in this is touching a nerve, not just intellectually, but personally. Maybe it's because you've spent years letting things slide, hoping they'd see your value on their own. Maybe it's because you've been silent for so long, you forgot what it feels like to stand your ground. Or maybe you've just had enough of being polite when you should have been firm. Enough of being understanding when they were clearly disrespecting you. Enough of living on edge just to keep other people comfortable. So pause this for a second, not to stop the momentum, but to anchor it. Because there's power in naming what we've let slide. What's one boundary, just one, that you wish you upheld more? Was it saying no without guilt? Walking away from conversations that drained you? Refusing to be the emotional dumpster for people who never check on you? Comment it. Put it in writing. Not for me, for you, for the part of you that's learning to speak again. Not louder, but clearer. And if this has been hitting deeper than you expected, if it's stirring something you've buried for too long, then don't just watch in silence. Subscribe, because this isn't a one-off reminder. This is a quiet rebuild, one layer at a time, and the next layer might just be the most important one of all. It's time to let go of needing their approval, because as long as you need them to see your worth, they still hold the power. Trick number 3, detach from needing their approval. There's a truth most people never say out loud. We all want to be liked, to be seen, to be validated. That's not weakness, it's human wiring. From the moment we could walk, we looked up for approval, from parents, from teachers, from friends. We were rewarded for behaving, for fitting in, for not making things difficult. So we learned, slowly and deeply, that approval equals safety, that praise means we matter, that love has to be earned. But here's the tragedy. That survival instinct, it follows us into adulthood, into relationships where we constantly prove ourselves, into friendships where we perform, into jobs where we say yes when we want to say no, just to avoid being seen as difficult. It becomes validation addiction. You live for the pat on the back, the good job, the text back, the smile, the approval. And every time you don't get it, you start questioning your worth. I know the feeling, that hollow space when someone's silence feels like rejection, when a room full of people laughs and you wonder if it's at you, When you post something you're proud of and the likes don't come, and suddenly it doesn't feel worth it anymore. You become a prisoner, not in chains, but in the invisible need to be seen. Marcus Aurelius said, "Don't depend on the opinion of others. It makes you a slave." Let that sink in. A slave to their attention, their reaction, their opinion, good or bad. You let them define your value, when your value was never up for debate. But here's the shift. You're not broken for caring, you're not soft, you're not weak, you're not insecure, you're just wired for approval. And that wiring can be rewritten. Let's start here. Close your eyes. Picture your life if no one ever praised you again. No applause, no compliments, no recognition, just you, waking up, doing the work, living aligned with your values. Even if no one claps, would you still do it? Would it still be worth it? Would you still respect yourself? Because that is freedom. The work starts from the inside. So here are your tools to detach from needing their validation. Tool 1, the mirror visualization. Every morning, stand in front of the mirror. Before you check your phone, before the outside world gets a vote, look yourself in the eye, not your outfit, not your flaws, your eyes, and ask, would I still show up today if no one noticed? Because that's integrity. And when your actions align with who you are, not who you're trying to impress, you start to feel whole again. Tool 2, journal prompts. At the end of the day, ask yourself, what did I do today that made me proud, even if no one saw it? Where did I shrink myself for approval? What would I do differently tomorrow if I needed no one's permission? Write the truth, not the polished version, the raw one, because awareness is the first thread in cutting the rope. Tool 3, morning mantra. You only need one sentence, I validate myself. Say it out loud, even if your voice shakes, especially if your voice shakes, because the brain learns through repetition, and what you repeat, you start to believe. Here's what they won't tell you. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to be flashy. You don't need to win them over. You just need to be centered in your own truth. And something strange happens when you stop chasing validation. People start respecting you more, not because you begged for it, but because you carry yourself like someone who doesn't need it. That energy, it's unmistakable. You walk into a room with no hunger in your eyes, no need to be seen, no desperation to be understood. You just are. And that presence, it's the loudest thing in the room. So here's your third Stoic move. Detach from needing their approval, not by becoming bitter, not by pretending you don't care, but by realizing you don't need it to begin with. Now breathe. You've let go of needing their praise, and in doing so, you've taken your power back. Next, we go deeper. Because when you've stopped reacting, when your boundaries are solid, when your validation is internal, you're ready for the next test. Someone will try to provoke you, to rattle your calm, to shake your composure, to pull you back into chaos. But now, you'll be ready. Let's talk about controlled responses. Trick number 4, master the art of the controlled response. You've detached from needing their approval. That's power. But here's the next test. What do you do when someone tries to provoke you? Because it will happen. Someone, somewhere, is going to say something reckless, loud, public, designed to get under your skin. And in that moment, you'll feel it. The heat rise in your chest. The instinct to clap back, to prove them wrong, to say something, anything that puts them in their place. That moment is the real test of your strength. Let me give you a story. There's a man at a dinner party, confident, calm, not flashy, just present. Halfway through the evening, another man, fueled by insecurity and wine, says loudly across the table, "You know, I've never understood what you actually do. You just show up, say nothing, act like you're above everyone." The room falls quiet. All eyes move to the man who was just insulted. He could fire back. He could defend himself. He could match the volume, but he doesn't. He takes a breath. He looks the man in the eye and says, "That's your opinion." Then he turns to his plate, keeps eating, no defense, no energy wasted, and just like that, he wins. That's what controlled response looks like. Not silence born of fear, not reaction born of ego, but intentional calm. The Stoics had a word for this, ataraxia, a state of unshakable peace, where your external world no longer disturbs your internal clarity. You still feel emotions, you just don't let them run you. When someone irritates you, said Epictetus, it is not that person's actions that disturb you, but your judgment of them. In other words, they're not in control of your reaction. You are. Let's break this down into something you can use. The Stoic response template. Step 1. Pause. When someone insults you, challenges you, mocks you, don't respond immediately. Don't take the bait. Just pause. Let the silence stretch. The pause is the most disarming move in the room. Step 2. Breathe one slow breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. This resets your nervous system, stops the emotional hijack, and signals to your brain, I'm in control here. Step 3. Respond. Don't react. When you do speak, do it from clarity. Here are a few scripts that carry power without creating drama. That's your opinion. No sarcasm, no edge, just neutrality. It shuts down the attack without inviting more. I'm not interested in arguing, not avoidance, clarity. You're not here to play their game. Silence plus eye contact. Nothing speaks louder than calm stillness. Hold their gaze. Let them feel the discomfort. Because when you react, you give them power. When you respond, you keep it. And there's a deeper layer here. Psychological mastery. What you're doing is a form of verbal judo. Instead of meeting force with force, you redirect the energy. Let them throw the punch. You don't swing back. You step aside and let them fall forward into their own momentum. It's not weakness, it's strategy. And then there's something called gray rocking. When someone wants attention, positive or negative, you give them none. You become boring, flat, emotionless, like a gray rock. You say less, you show less, you give nothing to feed on, and eventually they lose interest, because people who feed off your reactions can't survive without them. Here's what you need to remember. You don't need to be the loudest. You don't need to prove your intelligence. You don't need to match their energy. Your calmness is confrontation. Your clarity is defense. Your restraint is a show of strength most people never develop. There's a quote that says, "Never wrestle with a pig. You both get dirty, and the pig likes it." Don't get in the mud. Keep your posture. Keep your peace. Let them flail in their noise. You stay grounded in your stillness. Because when you master the controlled response, you don't just disarm others, you elevate yourself to a level where only those with emotional discipline can meet you. This is your fourth Stoic move. Master the art of the controlled response. Let others waste their energy. Let them talk, provoke, spiral. You remain still, like water behind glass, like fire beneath stone. Now we arrive at the final piece. You've silenced disrespect. You've built your boundaries. You've detached from their praise. You've responded with control. Now, it's time to stop proving who you are and start living like you already know. Let's talk about how to walk through this world with quiet, grounded self-respect. Trick number 5. Live respectably, and let that be enough. You've done the work. You've stopped reacting. You've built your walls. You've stopped chasing their applause. You've mastered calm under pressure. But now comes the most important piece, how you live when no one's watching. Because the final step isn't about how others treat you, it's about how you treat yourself, the respect you want from them. You have to give to yourself first, and not just once in a while, but daily, quietly, relentlessly. Don't chase respect, the Stoics would say. Command it by how you carry yourself. Not through arrogance, not through proving, but by becoming someone so grounded, so consistent, so self-led, that even your silence carries authority. Let me tell you a story. There was a man, simple, focused, disciplined. He worked hard, spoke rarely, never engaged in gossip. One day, a co-worker tried to humiliate him in front of the team, mocked his routines, said, "You're too stiff, too serious. You act like you're better than everyone." The man didn't flinch. He looked at him, then looked down at his notes, didn't respond, didn't react. And weeks later, that same co-worker, the one who mocked him, was quietly asking him for advice. Because when you live right, when your conduct is consistent, when your actions speak louder than your need to explain, respect shows up, sometimes late, but always certain. That's what this is about now, living respectably, and letting that be enough, not because the world will clap for you, but because you no longer need the noise. You're building a life that speaks for you. Marcus Aurelius said, "Be indifferent to those who are indifferent to virtue." In other words, stop chasing approval from people who don't value honor, discipline, or integrity. Your life is not a performance. You don't need to be entertaining. You don't need to be liked. You just need to be aligned with what's right for you. So how do you do that? How do you live respectably, day after day? Here are the final tools. Tool 1, Daily Conduct Checklist. Before your day begins, remind yourself who you want to be. Did I act with discipline today? Did I speak with intention, not ego? Did I show up for my values even when no one was watching? Did I walk away from what disrespects me without the need to explain? If the answer is yes, even to one, you're winning. And if the answer is no, tomorrow is yours to correct. Tool 2, Mirror Accountability. Each night, stand in front of the mirror, not to check your appearance, but to check your alignment. Ask, did I live like someone I respect today? Not someone they approve of, not someone they like, someone you respect. And if not, don't beat yourself up. Just commit to doing better, because respect isn't something you get, it's something you earn from yourself, one day at a time. Tool 3, Morning Grounding Rituals. You can't expect the world to feel stable if your mornings are chaos. Begin your day with intention. 5 minutes of silence. No phone, just stillness. A short mantra. I move with clarity. I answer only to what aligns. A breath, a decision. I will not betray myself today. Start grounded, and the world won't be able to shake you loose. Tool 4, Self-Image Affirmations. Affirmations aren't about hype. They're about identity reinforcement. Say these out loud every morning, even if you don't fully believe them yet. I am not here to impress. I am here to align. I don't chase attention. I command peace. I walk with quiet power. I treat myself the way I want others to treat me. Repeat them daily until they become your baseline. Because here's the truth. The world may never fully understand you. You may never get the credit you deserve. Some will misread your silence. Others will mistake your boundaries for arrogance. Let them. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be clear. Clear about who you are, what you allow, what you stand for. And if you can live that out every day without applause, you've already won. So here's your final Stoic move. Live respectably. And let that be enough. Let your consistency speak. Let your boundaries speak. Let your discipline speak. And when people try to test you, you won't need to react, because you'll know who you are. And that's the kind of strength they can't touch. There's a version of you that no longer explains yourself, no longer walks on eggshells, no longer confuses being quiet with being small, a version that no longer gets pulled into chaos just to prove a point, a version that doesn't need validation to breathe freely, that doesn't lower the volume of its truth to be more digestible. There's a version of you that no longer gets disrespected, not because you bark louder, not because you've mastered the perfect comeback, not because you've built walls and cut off the world, but because you finally stopped. Stopped entertaining people who mistake your kindness for weakness, stopped bending so far backward that you forgot what standing tall felt like, stopped giving your sacred energy to people who never earned it. Be that version, the one who walks into rooms with quiet composure, who holds eye contact without flinching, who doesn't chase respect, but radiates it, because now you know you never had to fight to be respected. You just had to stop shrinking to be tolerated. If this gave you even 1% more power, if it reminded you of something you've always known deep down, but needed to hear out loud, subscribe. This isn't motivation. This is armor. And we're only getting started. Share this with someone still leaking their light into people who don't deserve it. Someone who's tired. Someone who forgot how powerful they actually are. Drop a comment. Tell me what hit you hardest, what you're letting go of, what version of yourself you're becoming. I'll be reading every one, because this isn't just a video, it's a turning point. And from this point on, you're not asking for peace. You're choosing it, quietly, relentlessly, unapologetically.